On to more serious matters. Labour is striving to move attention away from internal divisions and bring the party together after a failed move to remove the deputy leader, Tom Watson.
Yes, the party conference in Brighton enters its second day. Will his call for unity, which, as Nick Eardley was saying a few minutes ago, you only tend to hear when there isn't any, will it be heeded? Let's speak now to the Guardian columnist and Labour activist Owen Jones and former Labour advisor Ayesha Hazarika. Morning to you both. I guess the big thought for both of you is we've got a Prime Minister who was elected by a slither of the electorate, who's kicked out a load of his own MPs, who might fail to deliver on his central pledge. We're potentially weeks away from a general election. And it's the showcase opportunity for the alternative government to show how they can do things, Owen, and they're all fighting like rats in a sack.
Politics, eh? It's never a dull moment in 2019. Yeah, I mean, I think now because obviously conference only really gets into gear from today onwards. There's about 4 days left of it. And I suppose the focus now has to be on the policy programme that does unite the vast majority of people here, whether it be, obviously, they're debating the Green New Deal because there's a massive climate emergency, which is a bit of a problem, which threatens the existence of our species. So coming up with how they can transform the economy, create lots of jobs and create a green and just economy. Whether it be, I know they're talking about scrapping prescription charges today, Ofsted, the bugbear of teachers. And what they need to do is kind of bring back the spirit of 2017, because you remember before the election...
Well, it doesn't look like there's much of the 2017 spirit, does it? With Tom Watson can't even get out of Brighton railway station without being the subject of a political drive-by shooting, as he described it.
Well, I mean, back in 2016, the Labour Party, just before the election, was completely being torn to shreds. So I think things can be a lot worse than that, I can assure you. And the point is about what they do need to do, you're right, though, is to bring back that spirit. Because what you saw in 2017 was when that manifesto was, well, leaked originally, but it turned out to be a good thing. When there was policies about taxing the rich to invest in the economy, public ownership, scrapping tuition fees, whether it be, you know, the kind of radical kind of green policies they had, public ownership of utilities, that kind of thing, which in much of the media was seen as kind of, you can't do that, that's really extreme, people won't buy it. Well, millions of people did, and it brought that kind of, that surge, that sense of, you know, this is we can build a new country together. And I think that's the test of Labour the next few days. Can they recapture that moment of, come on, guys, this is a really unjust and broken country, but we can transform it and build something new. And
Ayesha, that's an interesting point, isn't it, that Owen makes, that conventionally it's easy to conclude that Labour is a shambles because everyone's falling out with each other and all the rest of it, and yet there was plenty of stories just like this a couple of years back, and Labour did massively better than so many people thought.
Sure, but they didn't win the election, did they?
Sure.
They didn't win the election. I mean, the whole point about being in politics, to do all the things that Owen has sort of said, is to sort of transform Britain, and you don't do that from opposition. You're in it to win it. That's the whole point of being a political party. And we have started this conference with a real cloud over us. I mean, I got here on Friday night, and delegates I've spoken to from, by the way, across the political spectrum, including people who are much more to the left than somebody, let's say, like me, very supportive of Jeremy Corbyn, Momentum sort of members, are absolutely sort of dismayed about the fact that, you know, you have an opportunity at conference to show the world, to show the public, to show the media, to show the voters that we're a government in waiting. It's a great showcase, and yet we've started it with this kind of ridiculous internal fighting. And the thing is, we're not just about policies in the Labour Party. We're not an arid think tank. It's about our values. It's about how we treat people. And so this is an incredibly bad look. I spoke, interestingly, last night I spoke to both Tom Watson and John Landsman, and pretty much everybody in between. And I think everybody is like really quite regretful about how this turned out. The problem with the Labour Party right now is that we have got really good policies, as Owen says, but until we stop this circular firing squad, this week we've had Harriet Harman attacked. We're sort of deselecting MPs, including really good MPs. Like there's a woman called Diana Johnson, who's always, by the way, just been really loyal to Jeremy Corbyn and has done fantastic things on contaminated blood. She's been a fabulous, fabulous Labour MP. And I think at the moment we've got to sort of, what a lot of our comrades have to realise is that the enemy is not within. The enemy is Boris Johnson and the Tories.
OK, just to explain, John
Lansman,
Lansman,
general election coming up.
OK, just a second, Owen. Just explaining that John Lansman, one of the senior figures behind the scenes involved in that whole row involving the Deputy Leader, Tom Watson. Let's talk about Brexit, because I guess that was a key element in that row involving Tom Watson yesterday. And to you first, Ayesha, is the policy that we now have from Labour on Brexit sellable on the doorstep? On the face of it, the party can argue that it's pragmatic. Dan Carden, Shadow Cabinet Minister, was making that argument an hour ago, trying to straddle both sides of the argument. On the other, if you knock on the door and the punter says, what's your policy on Brexit, and it's halfway through EastEnders, there's a grave risk that the candidate's still there at the end of Newsnight trying to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's very unclear at the moment, and I think basically if you're on the doorstep and you literally need to get a flip chart out and draw a flow chart, then it's very, very tough. You've lost the person on the doorstep. I think we're getting to the point now where we're going to have a general election. I would actually prefer there to be a people's vote or a referendum before that. I don't think that's going to happen.
Though, is it?
The sad thing is this is going to be... well, exactly. I mean, I think I would like that, but I accept that. I think that's going to be tough. I think the problem is this is going to be a de facto Brexit general election. And what we saw from the European elections is that the public are rewarding parties that have clarity on Brexit, from the Liberal Democrats to the Brexit Party. And so I hosted a rally for the People's Vote with people like Emily Thornberry and lots of other socialist MPs who are very, very supportive of Jeremy Corbyn. They say they love socialism, they hate Brexit. Their message to the leader, Jeremy Corbyn, is please don't be neutral on the biggest political issue of our generation. Come out and back Remain.
So on that, I do think sometimes in the media there's a bit of performative ignorance going on in terms of the Brexit position of Labour, as though, oh, it's so complicated, we've got to draw some flow chart. And it seems to me a very straightforward position to say there'll be a referendum Remain on the ballot paper. I remember the People's Vote campaign, which Ayesha's been a stalwart supporter of, which was only set up less than a year and a half ago. And its position was that any deal with the European Union that's negotiated should be put to a confirmatory vote with Remain on the ballot. And that's Labour's position. And the choice people are going to have at the next election, because it'll only be a Labour-led or a Tory-led government, will be either a no-deal hard Brexit government or they'll get a referendum in the
The thing is, though, Owen,
vote for Remain.
if Jeremy Corbyn... Hang on a second. Quick question. Hang on a minute, Ayesha. Owen, I take your point about the... what you say is a clearer picture on Brexit than perhaps some are suggesting. But if Mr Corbyn cannot answer the question, which happened the other day in an interview with ITV 8 times, are you pro-Leave or pro-Remain? You can make a pragmatic case for him standing above it, but in practical terms, is that sustainable during a general election campaign?
Well, I suppose this really is my frustration, because this country is in the grip of a culture war which is ripping apart the social fabric of this country, and it's being whipped up on the one side by Brexiteers who say the only real Brexit is no deal, and now on the other side the goalposts constantly being shifted that revoke is the only genuine Remain position. I mean, where's this going to end? And I think if we think back to the referendum, both me and Ayesha were on the losing side. We lost the referendum back in 2016, and that was bitter. And we both felt, like lots of Remainers, a sense of grievance over the last 3 years, because we felt we were excluded from the future of our country and were told we were enemies of the people, traitors, saboteurs, citizens of nowhere, and all the rest of it. Now, if the referendum, there's going to be another referendum, me and Ayesha will also campaign and support Remain. But if we win that election, millions of Leave voters risk feeling exactly how we felt, like they've been conquered, that a triumphalist army has defeated them. That's how Remainers currently feel. You've got to have a government that in some way can straddle that divide. If you do not have a government that can say we speak for Remainers and Leavers to some degree, there is no future for this country. And I have to say, I am sick to death myself, having been all of us stuck in this ridiculous psychodrama for the last 3.5 years, where there's a burning fire going on and charlatans and shysters on both sides pouring petrol on it. Are we going to bring this country together, yes or no? That's the question people have to ask. Maybe people don't want that. But maybe people just want us to have this constant bum fight about who can be the most Remain and who can be the most Leave. I am fed up of it myself, and I think lots of people are fed up with it as well.
Briefly, Ayesha.
I mean, look, in an ideal world, we would like, yeah, but look, This is the political fight of our generation. The general election is coming down the track. It's going to be a Brexit general election, and the Labour Party...
Can't just be a Brexit
well, it's going
election.
to be, Owen, I'm afraid.
What about the injustices that led to Brexit in the first place? Do we talk about them, or do we just forget about them?
We're not going to be able to enact them if we don't win a general election. And Jeremy Corbyn is going to have to pick a side.
Okay.
You cannot just try and be all things to all people, end up being nothing to nobody.
You've got to bring the country together, Ayesha, at some point.
Well, he can't even bring his party together, Owen. We started the conference in disarray.
You two are a great double act, but we're only on until 9 o'clock.
He tried to just get rid of his stuff.
Oh, look at that. Unity. Unity in Brighton. Maybe the first we've seen of it, but there it is.
Think about it.
Thanks very much, both. We appreciate it.
I like to see that. I like to see that.
Making
up at the end, yeah.